Good afternoon. I hereby call this April 16, 2026 meeting of the Staunton Planning Commission to order. Before we begin our agenda tonight, I just wanted to officially welcome our newest commissioner, Steve Tomoso, and thank you for serving the city and helping us all out here. All right, the first item on our agenda is approval of the March 19, 2026 meeting minutes. Does anyone have any changes? Discussion? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move we approve the minutes of the previous meeting as distributed.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve the March 19, 2026 meeting minutes as presented. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Hanson,
Aye.
Ms. Wiggin,
Aye.
Ms. Robinson,
Aye.
Mr. Kyer,
Aye.
Mr. Tomaso.
Abstain.
We now turn to the new business on our agenda, and I understand that we have a motion to amend the agenda.
Madam Chair, I move to amend the meeting agenda and to add consideration for authorization of a zoning text amendment under new business as item 3B.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve amending the agenda to add consideration for authorizing of a zoning text amendment under new business as item 3B. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Tomaso,
Aye.
Mr. Hanson,
Aye.
Ms. Wiggin,
Aye.
Ms. Robinson,
Aye.
Mr. Kyer. Motion carries.
And the agenda is amended. The first item on the new business agenda tonight is a public hearing. After the staff report is given and the commission has had the opportunity to ask questions of staff, the applicant or the applicant's representative will be given the opportunity to address the commission, to make comments about the request and answer any questions that the commission may have. Thereafter, the public hearing will be opened and the floor will be open for comments from the public and also from Zoom. All speakers here in person should come to the podium at the front and first provide us with their name and address. And we ask that the applicant limit comments to 10 minutes and that all other speakers limit their comments to 3 minutes. Also, the public hearing is a time for the commission to listen to your remarks. In an effort to encourage and maintain orderly conduct, we will not engage in, give, or take debate. If you're seeking any information, you may mention that during your remarks, and a member of the community development staff may get in touch with you in the days ahead. All right, the first item is item 3A, public hearing and consideration of a request by FAP Properties 13 LLC to rezone 855 Statler Boulevard and a portion of 851 Statler Boulevard from I-1 Light Industrial District to B2 General Business District.
Madam Chair, before we get going, I'm gonna have to recuse myself on this as I'm the surveyor that's been working on it. Just to simplify things, I also have to recuse myself from 3B for the same reason.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I need to recuse myself for being for sharing a place.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. And Tim Hartless, Planning Manager for the city, will present the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you said, this is a request by FAP Properties for a rezoning of 855 Statler Boulevard from I-1 Light Industrial to B2 General Business. The property is located on the east side of Statler Boulevard near the intersection with Greenville Avenue. 855 Statler is a portion of a larger parcel, which is addressed as 851 Statler. Although it's all one platted lot, the city assessor's office has split this into two separate parcels for tax purposes, for tax bills. So that's created a little bit of confusion because the address is 855, although it is part of the larger 851 parcel. And this rezoning is specifically for the smaller building, which is set up as a kind of like a strip mall, and then the parking lot directly in front of it. The property was developed in the late 1980s as the Statler Crossing Shopping Center, and it was the location of Staunton's first Walmart. And several other smaller retail stores. Walmart relocated to its current location on Richmond Avenue in 1994. The applicant acquired the property in 2006 and began to use it for warehouse space. And the smaller building remained used as a retail operations. Mostly, I think there was an A&N store and a Chinese restaurant. 2011, the applicant requested to rezone the entire property from B2 general business to I1 light industrial, which would allow the applicant more flexibility and possibly an expansion of the warehouse use. Now, Fisher Auto Parts is requesting to rezone the smaller building, the strip center portion of the building, back to B2 general business. This would allow the applicant to once again lease these spaces out for business purposes, things like retail stores, restaurants, perhaps offices. Attachment 1 in your meeting packet includes an application form and a plat showing the specific portion of the property to be rezoned. Staff has conducted a review of the proposed rezoning, during which it did not identify any issues. The smaller building is difficult to use for industrial purposes because of the lower ceiling height and the smaller footprint. And using the building for business purposes seems to be the highest and best use of the space. Access to the site is from Statler Boulevard by way of a traffic light. There is plenty of available parking for any businesses that might locate in this building. And the property was developed and intended to be used for business purposes, and rezoning it back to B2 would allow the reestablishment of that use. Surrounding zoning includes I1 light industrial to the north, the south, and the east, and B2 general business to the west. Surrounding uses include the Fisher Auto Parts warehouse, Fisher Auto Parts retail store, the Augusta Health outpatient care clinic, and the Statler Square Shopping Center, which is across Statler Boulevard. The city's comprehensive plan, future land use map designates this area as commercial, and the requested rezoning is consistent with that designation. And staff is recommending that Planning Commission recommend approval of the rezoning.
Are there any questions for staff? All right, well, then I will go ahead and open the public hearing and invite the applicant to come up to the podium.
Hello, Madam Chair. James Thompson with Westwood Professional Services. I'm here to field any questions anyone might have about the project.
Okay,
So-
please.
What are you handling for the project?
We're handling the surveying work, sir,
The surveying work.
for the rezoning. Yes, sir.
I have no questions regarding that.
I think the applicant's attorney is here as well. Did you have some other questions?
I do.
Okay,
So there's a long list of businesses that could go there in that space under B2 and B1. What businesses are you hoping to attract into the space?
and before you answer, can I get you to come up to the microphone just so we catch your remarks? Thank you.
Commissioners, Ross Hayes, General Counsel for Fisher Auto Parts, an affiliate of FAP Properties 23. I believe the question was, what businesses are we looking at attracting? We're currently considering a number of options. I think very in keeping with the business across the street at the shopping center with Kroger. We'd be looking towards general retail, restaurant, and potentially office space, either for professionals or other services that would be generally available to the public.
Thank you.
Anyone
Other?
else?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else here would like to speak to this item? Is there anyone with their hand raised on Zoom?
No, ma'am.
Okay, then I will close the public hearing and the matter rests with the commission.
Do you have any concerns?
I have no concerns. It's a reversion back to a original state.
Essentially back to what it was before.
Yes,
So are we ready for a motion?
please.
On the basis that the rezoning would serve the interests of public necessity, convenience, general welfare, and good zoning practice, I move that Planning Commission recommend approval of the rezoning of 855 Statler Boulevard and a portion of 851 Statler Boulevard from I-1 Light Industrial District to B2 General Business District.
Seconded.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve the rezoning. Would clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Tomaso?
Aye.
Ms. Wiggin?
Aye.
Ms. Robinson?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next is item 3B, authorization to amend chapters 18.20 R1 Low Density Residential and 18.25 R2 Low Density Residential District of Title 18 zoning of the Staunton City Code to allow private day nurseries and kindergarten as a use permitted on review. And in this item, I am a board member for the YMCA who brought this matter before the commission. So I have a conflict, so I will turn this over to the vice chair to preside over the matter.
Thank you. And we're expecting Mr. Kyer to rejoin us.
And he-
Oh, there you are. Thank you. Welcome back. Okay. So, Mr. Hartless, would you please give us the report,
Certainly.
staff report?
The Staunton Augusta YMCA has requested this zoning text amendment, which would allow private day nurseries and kindergartens, which also are known as child daycares, as a use permitted on review in our R1 and R2 zoning districts. That means that daycares could be permitted in the R1 and R2 district with a special use permit. That's the same way that we handle these requests in our other residential districts. Currently, daycares are not permitted at all in R1 and R2 districts. So we're basically asking to amend the code so that we handle daycares in R1 and R2 the same way that we do in our other residential zoning districts. Staff does support the requested amendment and believes that child daycares could be permitted in low-density residential areas without negatively impacting the area. The special use permit process allows us to review each request individually, based on its own merits and its specific location to ensure that compatibility with the surrounding area. And staff is asking that Planning Commission authorize this code amendment.
Thank you. Do we have any discussion or questions for staff?
Yeah, so Mr. Harless, assume somebody wants to put a daycare in a R1, so they're going to do a business from their home, correct? Or is it was going to be a standalone facility that is contained within an R1 district?
It could be. We do in-home daycares through home occupation permits, and those are limited to less than 6 children. If you more than 6, then you're required to have an actual daycare facility and be licensed by, I think it used to be social services, but I think it might be the Department of Education now.
So forgive me, but what is the difference between the current state and what the Y is asking for?
So the Y is asking for a daycare facility. Their facility would provide care for over 100 children. And to do that, it needs to be a use that's permitted in the R1 districts. And right now it's not. So with this amendment, it would become a use that we could consider with a special use permit.
Confirming a standalone building.
It would be a standalone building dedicated to child daycare.
One more question, Mr. Hartless, just for clarification. This is specifically referencing their new facility on New Hope Road, correct?
Yeah, that is what prompted this request, is they wish to have a daycare at their facility on New Hope Road.
So we approved a couple years ago, a special use permit already in place for that, was it a summer camp?
It was a summer camp, yes.
Okay. So this would just be, if this goes forward, they would come back for an amendment to that original special use permit.
They will. That will follow this. If this amendment is approved, which allows us to consider special use permits for this use, then they will follow that up with a special use application.
Thank you.
On the basis that it would serve the interests of the public necessity, convenience, general welfare, and good zoning practice, I move that planning commission authorize staff to work on amendments of chapter 18.20 and 18.25 of Title 18 zoning of the Staunton City Code to allow private day nurseries and kindergartens as use permitted on review.
Seconded.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we authorize the staff to look into this matter. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Kyer,
Aye.
Mr. Tomaso,
Aye.
Ms. Wiggin,
Aye.
motion carries.
You're very welcome. Thank you. I almost.
All right, we now turn to old business. Item 4A is consideration of a request by Staunton Augusta Properties LLC for a special use permit for McIntosh Village, a planned residential development requested under the provisions of Staunton City Code Section 18.25.030, parenthetical 10. Mr. Hartless, Planning Manager for the city, will present the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a request from Staunton Augusta Properties LLC for a special use permit for a planned residential development, which would be known as McIntosh Village. The property is located in an area between Middlebrook Avenue, the Shenandoah Heights neighborhood, and the Green Spring Valley neighborhood. The applicant acquired the property in September of 2024 and is now proposing to construct 267 single-family homes on approximately 77.31 acres of land. The property is zoned R2 low-density residential, and a PRD can only be permitted through a special use permit process. The city code, Chapter 18-105, Development Standards for Uses Permitted on Review, establishes the requirements for a PRD. And that section permits a developer to propose their own minimum lot size, their own setbacks, that allows density to be clustered in the more easily developed areas of the property. And in exchange for that, the developer will hold open space and provide recreational opportunities through amenities. Usually those are things like walking trails, picnic pavilions, playgrounds. But the overall density of the entire property may not exceed what is permitted under the base zoning. In this case, the base zoning is R2. The permitted density is 4.9 units per acre. So the overall density of this 77 acres may not exceed that 4.9 units per acre. But because they're allowed to cluster the development, individual acreage within the overall site could have higher densities than 4.9, just so long as the overall site doesn't exceed that. The developer has proposed this PRD with the following area requirements. The minimum lot size would be 3,000 square feet. The standard in R2 is 8,750 square feet. Minimum setbacks, the front would be 18 feet. In the R2, it generally is 25 feet. The side would be 6 feet, and the standard in R2 is 7 feet. And the rear would be 15 feet, while the R2 standard is 30 feet. And then for corner side yards, that would be a property on a corner lot. So the side of the property that faces the side street would be a 12-foot setback, and in the R2, it's generally 12 and a half feet. The maximum density proposed under this development is 3.5 units per acre. And again, the R2 allows for up to 4.9 units per acre. For the common area amenities, the developer proposes one amenity called Amenity A, which would include a patio with a fire pit, would include concrete paver blocks or comparable surface, roughly 2,000 square foot minimum size, with a pavilion and a gazebo, which would be a wooden structure under roof with 4 picnic tables and 4 benches, and it would be roughly 800 square foot minimum size. Amenity B, which would be a playground, which would include commercial grade play equipment, including at least 3 swings, 1 slide, 1 climbing wall, and would be at least 2,000 square foot in size. And then amenity C, D, and E are all walking trails. The developer has proposed asphalt or crushed rock with a minimum 5-foot width. You'll see later we've proposed a condition that would specify asphalt or concrete, not crushed rock. The planned residential development process allows the city to consider privately owned streets. A private street is generally a street that is owned and maintained by a homeowners association. The developer proposes 1 private street in this development, which would provide access to 3 lots, Lot 7, Lot 8, and Lot 9. A homeowners association must own this street, and they must bear responsibility for the maintenance. And maintenance, this will include snow removal and repaving costs. Access to the site is by way of an existing public street, is available from either Green Spring Valley or Shenandoah Heights. The fire code requires 2 separate means of ingress and egress when a development exceeds 30 dwellings. So the developer proposes 267 dwelling units, therefore more than 1 access point will be required. This new access point from Middlebrook Avenue must be constructed in the first phase of the development before construction to any dwelling unit is completed. And the developer has proposed access from 3 possible locations. The first is an existing access easement between 1138 and 1220 Middlebrook Avenue. This is the private road or a driveway that goes up past the Grace Christian Gymnasium. The second access point is undeveloped Gillum Street, which is a street that has been dedicated on a plat, but it's never been built and the city has never accepted it. But the developer could build that street and it would become a public street and it could serve as access to the development. And then the third is undeveloped Grayson Street. Again, this one has been platted. It has been dedicated to the city, but no one has ever built the street and the city has never accepted it. But the developer could build the street and the city would then accept it into the street system and it could serve as an access point. If the developer chooses to use undeveloped Grayson Street, a portion of the street grade may exceed 12% slope, which would necessitate a variance to the city's subdivision standards. Title 17.15.070 grades of streets limits slope of streets in residential areas to no more than 12%. Council has the authority to grant a variance to that provision if it chooses to do so. It's not obligated to do that. It's strictly at the discretion of city council. If council does not approve that variance to the subdivision standard, then that street, Grayson Street, could not be used for access. And the developer would have to submit a construction plan to the Community Development Department, which shows that a street could be built in that location and meet all of our subdivision standards and all of our street requirements. As shown on the attached map in your packet, surrounding zoning is R2, low-density residential, with some B2 general business district to the east along Middlebrook Avenue. That B2 area is minimal, and it does not appear to include any of the proposed development area, so rezoning of that B2 is not necessary for consideration of this request. The city's comprehensive plan, future land use map, designates this area as low-density residential. This designation is characterized as single-family detached dwellings with a maximum density of 1 to 5 units per acre. The proposed development contains a density of approximately 3.5 units per acre, which means that the requested special use permit is consistent with that comp plan land use designation. The special use permit is only the first step in a multi-step process to develop the property. Likely, the development will occur in phases. For each phase, the developer will submit an infrastructure construction plan, which details the construction of the infrastructure, which includes the streets, the gutter, the curb, the sidewalks, and the stormwater management facilities, as well as the common elements. And it also includes a grading plan for each lot. The construction plans are reviewed and approved administratively. Once the construction plan is approved, the developer will submit a final plat to create the lots for that specific phase of the development. Once the plat is recorded in the land book and the circuit court, then building permits could be issued for each dwelling unit. While staff is generally supportive of the proposed development, there are some concerns that should be addressed with conditions associated with approval of the SUP. So the first condition is prior to the recordation of a final plat for Section 1 of the proposed development, city staff must review a copy of the proposed covenants and restrictions. A responsible party must be identified for the maintenance, repair, replacement of the stormwater management facilities, the common areas and amenities, as well as the proposed private street. Construction of the connection to Middlebrook Avenue must be completed as part of the first phase of the development, and it must be completed prior to issuance of any certificate of occupancy. To avoid excessive construction traffic in Greenspring Valley, the road connecting to Ritchie Boulevard shall not be open to traffic until the certificate of occupancy is ready to be issued for the 31st dwelling unit. That's the most that we can approve without that second connection. An infrastructure construction plan must be submitted and reviewed to ensure that the infrastructure construction meets the city standards. The necessary streets, water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure must be designed and constructed accordingly to extend to this development. The infrastructure construction plan must be approved prior to beginning any construction activities. The development, number 5, the development will include more than 50 new lots. Therefore, a preliminary plat will be required prior to submittal of the infrastructure construction plan. Number 6, all lots to be platted will be for single-family development or use that supports single-family development as determined by the zoning administrator. Number 7, one private street is approved, which will provide access to lots 7, 8, and 9 on the master plan. All other lots will be accessed from a dedicated public street. Number 8, all walking trails and paths for all amenities must be constructed with an asphalt surface approved by the zoning administrator. Section 17.15.070 of the subdivision ordinance limits the grades of streets in residential zones to no more than 12%. No street may exceed a 12% grade unless city council chooses to grant a variance to the subdivision standard. Number 10, because of the development's proximity to a Virginia Department of Transportation maintained roadway, that would be Route 262 and Route 252 beyond the city limits. A 527 traffic impact analysis, including turn lane analysis, will be required as part of the construction plan review. Number 11, in addition to the Stanton City Code Title 17 requirement for sidewalks, sidewalks will also be required along the frontage of all residential lots as shown on the master plan. Number 12, the total number of units may not exceed 267 single-family dwellings. Number 13, on a corner lot, in cases where a garage faces a corner side yard, the corner side setback shall be a minimum of 18 feet. Number 14 says that approval of the special use permit for a planned residential development will include staff review and approval of the restrictive covenants for the sole purpose of ensuring the association or other entity is responsible for the ownership and maintenance of the common elements of the development, such as common areas, open space, recreational areas, common amenities, and stormwater management facilities. Other provisions of the restrictive covenants are a private agreement between the association, individual property owners, and/or the developer, and the city of Stanton is not a party to, nor does it take any interest in those provisions, nor will the city of Stanton enforce or litigate any matter related to the restrictive covenants. Approval of the special use permit for the planned residential development shall only include approval of entrance option 1 and 2. That would be the entrance by Grace Christian School gym, and number 2 would be the undeveloped Gillum Street. Option 3, undeveloped Grayson Street, is not approved at this time. If the developer wishes to use undeveloped Grayson Street for access, they must return at a later date and amend the special use permit and provide engineering details to show that Grayson Street can be developed with an acceptable grade. Number 16 says that a street connection must be made between Street H, shown on the master plan, and Gordon Street. Number 17, all principal structures must be set back at least 30 feet from any property line of any currently platted lot with frontage on Gloria Place or Jeffrey Street. Number 18 says the city shall not approve any construction entrance from Green Spring Valley or Shenandoah Heights neighborhoods. Number 19, there shall be a minimum setback of 30 feet for any principal structure around the periphery of the entire planned residential development. And number 20, Stanton City Code 18.105.0202C requires a minimum of 15% of land to be set aside for permanent usable open space and recreation. For this planned residential development, the percentage of land set aside shall be increased to 20%. Of course, that percentage number could be adjusted by Planning Commission depending on what you thought was appropriate. So staff is recommending that Planning Commission recommend approval of the requested special use permit with those conditions.
Thank you. Before we get into any discussion, do any of the commissioners have any questions for Mr. Hartless?
I have a couple questions. Yes. Mr. Hartless, condition 17, all principal structures. Define principal structures. Is that the house itself?
Yes, a principal structure is the house itself.
Is that an as-built condition or a permanent condition, meaning the house cannot be added on to after the fact?
That would be, these run with the land, so that condition would include any additions in the future.
How does that 30-foot setback interplay with the power easement from Dominion Power?
The power easement from Dominion Power, I believe it is a 50-foot access easement. You may need to get Mr. Schimpf to confirm that. And we discussed that in previous public hearings, where Mr. Schimpf states that he has designed the neighborhood in such a way that the power easement does not interfere with the siting of any of the proposed homes.
So the 30-foot has nothing to do with the
Has nothing to do with
Okay.
that easement.
Understood.
It's specific. 30-foot comes from the R2 low-density residential zoning, which is what this is. It's also what Green Spring Valley is. And that 30-foot is the minimum rear setback required and generally in a standard R2 zoning. So that would require that same setback for any property around the perimeter of this planned residential development.
I have one question. The calculations for density that were given for the proposed, that is just encompassing the land on which the open space amenities and the lots are, and not the residual 34 acres,
Right.
correct?
It's based on the 77 acres that are part of this development. It's not based on the additional roughly 33 acres that are not part of this.
Madam Chair, we have quite a few, we had some questions and some possible changes in the conditions.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just before,
Go ahead.
I wanna, are we, any more questions for Mr. Hartless at this time? So I guess as we move on, of course, we've been here twice, had 2 public hearings. This was recently continued from the March meeting, at our request and our direction to staff to provide us with some of these additional, conditions. And then when we had our meeting, we have a public field trip meeting on the Tuesday before this meeting. There was some additional discussion and some other items were brought up. That was spearheaded by Mr. Hanson, and I would ask if you would be so kind as to start our discussion and go through some of those.
Sure. The first and foremost item is the minimum lot size. Looking at the master plan, that has been presented to us, it would indicate that the typical lot, so I'm not looking at, necessarily the corners or in some of the places where you've got some sort of weird geometries, but the general rectangular lots measure to be about 6,000 square feet, give or take. It seems odd to me for a 3,000 square foot minimum. I mean, to be fair, that would be almost an unreasonably small single family lot. I mean, that's bordering on almost a townhouse size lot, to tell you the truth. So I'd like us specifically to look at that. And my opinion would say to make a larger minimum lot size, but not so restrictive that we're not, that we're restricting the development as it's shown. If again, my opinion would say that while we want to provide some latitude, a 5,000 or 5,500 square foot minimum seems like more than enough latitude if you're looking at a generally 6,000 square foot lot. But that's obviously interested in having some discussion on that.
Do you think 5,500, I mean, would, looking at some of the weirder corner lots that would?
Again, the way it's drawn, I would tell you that is more than adequate. I mean, typically I hate using the word weird corners, but the sort of the atypical lots are actually tend to be bigger, not smaller. Of course, with the corners requiring the larger side yard, they're going to naturally be bigger anyway. Sometimes I just know from my own experience, sometimes you get into like a cul-de-sac or something where there's a weird right-of-way line or something that the lot's still a certain width, but maybe you got a little corner cut off of it or something like that. That's why some latitude might not be a bad idea. But I just think half is too much.
I think 5,500. Thoughts?
Is there a way, because, I mean, those are always gonna be that one lot. And you're stating 5,500. Is there a way to say that, make it a percentage that 95% of all the lots must be a minimum of 5,500 square feet? That way there's a little bit of wiggle room for that odd lot, the last one that gets built. That's 4,750.
I think the problem is that when the phases change, the design could change somewhat. If all of the lots aren't included in phase one. So I'd be more inclined because of that to have a standard and not a percentage. And it's kind of a bright line. But I'll defer to the
I'd be
technical.
a hard line is easier to enforce
Yes.
from city staff's perspective. Then they're not tracking percentage of lots and this, that, and the other. I mean, I hear what you're saying, Mr. Tomaso, but I don't know. To me, if we're making an enforceable rule, then it's easier if there's a hard line, and if there's a too small of a lot, then it just needs to be part of a bigger lot, or have a little more space or something to that effect. Again, I think I could be flexible down to about 5,000 square feet, but once you get below that, we're starting to really
Yeah.
almost become too small to be buildable in some ways.
I live in a house near downtown Stanton, and my lot is about 3,300 square feet, and it is small. Now, my house has a smaller footprint than one of these. So I'm nice, it turns out it's a side yard rather than behind the house. But I don't think we should go below 5,000. I could see, in deference to Mr. Tomaso's comment, because there is going to be something in there somewhere. But then on the other hand, there's quite a bit of additional acreage here. So that if it's around an edge, you may be able to expand a street a little bit longer and make that last lot a reasonable size. So I would say either 5,000 or 5,500 is appropriate.
Split the difference?
50-50.
Okay.
Well,
But that's not terrible. That's the attorney coming out.
I know.
So in reference to what you're saying though, I would, if you're closer to a downtown core or something to that effect, a smaller lot size makes sense.
Sure.
A little higher density makes sense. As we're not in the downtown core. We're not, this is the edge of town. It's a low density residential neighborhood. That's why I'm sort of leaning that direction. I also think that sort of, in thinking back to your point about a little bit of a gray area, I could maybe even think about if we were in an infill situation where you were kind of restricted from multiple sides and kind of had to sort of squeeze some stuff in again in more of a downtown feel or an infill feel, where we're really trying to do something to that effect. But I think in this case, you got 77 acres to work with. Make the design work,
Yeah.
but also with some guardrails.
Okay.
Thinking like going forward in the future. We talked about 55, we talked about 5250, but I think a good benchmark would be 5,000 just to set the precedent.
They can always make it bigger than that, trying to give them a minimum.
Correct.
5,000?
Okay. Works, but it's a minimum.
All right.
Figure out what number that's going to be later.
It's insane.
Oh, it is?
It's in there.
Jeez.
You want to talk about the pathways? I think that's a pretty.
Sure. So, and there was a little bit of discussion here. Again, originally the wording said asphalt surface. So just to bring everybody up to speed, for those that might not be looking at the same pictures we are, obviously the sidewalks running with the streets would all be concrete like a normal 5-foot sidewalk would be. The applicant is looking at, as part of the master plan, providing some walking trails, walking paths that aren't parallel running with the streets. The original condition said asphalt surface approved by the zoning administrator. I actually sort of like the concept of a little more latitude there. I think Mr. Hartless has said maybe asphalt or concrete. I could even roll with something that says asphalt or equivalent surface as approved by the zoning administrator. Again, to me is, I think the goal is to get that hardscape surface. But with the guardrail, it has to be approved by the zoning administrator. I think that sort of gets us there from here. But again, that's just more of a, if we don't have to back them into an, my original concept and thought was these all connect to concrete sidewalks. If the developer said, let's make those concrete to match, great. That still serves our purpose of a easily maintainable walking trail that's not asphalt. But, or maybe there's another type of surface that I'm not thinking of. That's the only reason I'm thinking, again, a little more latitude. But again, the fact that it has to be approved still provides us the guardrail that I think that we're all looking for. But I'd also be interested in what city staff's
I
opinion
was
is.
just gonna say, do you have an opinion on that, Mr. Hartless?
Our biggest concern is just making sure that it's a surface that doesn't wash out, that's resistant to weeds and grass, and that's easy for the HOA to maintain.
Yeah,
I don't want,
agree.
I don't want something that's going to grow over in a year or two, and then the HOA has to constantly come back and maintain it every spring to keep it open and usable.
I mean, is there any surfaces that we're not, I guess I'm not thinking of that aren't asphalt or concrete that meet that definition?
Well, I think the applicant had proposed crushed, what's the term?
Crushed rock, I think is
Yeah,
what it
which
said.
is-
I think that's not what we're looking
Right.
for. I guess that's why I'm just, again, that's more actually trying to provide a little bit more latitude.
Yeah, the crushed stone's going to move.
Right.
Yeah,
Asphalt, concrete, permeable pavers, some kind of stamped concrete surface. I mean, there's
But that's
different
still
options, but
concrete.
we ended up coming back to something that's made out of concrete or asphalt or
okay.
something of that nature.
Just for perspective, we're not talking about 5-mile nature trails here. We're talking about connecting pathways that connect across 2 lots.
Right.
So, from a visual perspective, so my build, I'm pouring a ton of concrete here. There's a lot of sidewalks. I would specify concrete and just call it a day. So they all match, you're all doing it at the same time. There's not a visual difference between the sidewalk and another pathway. In essence, these are sidewalks. They're just not parallel to the road.
Right, they're not
Sure.
nature trails.
They're perpendicular to the road.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
Because then you're holding it to the same, it's not just about the surface, it's about the substructure, the drainage. If you don't have that in place, which is required, there's standards in the public right of way that the city's going to accept in the future. So if those aren't in place and you don't get the sub base and the design properly, it doesn't matter what your surface is going to be. It's going to fail over time.
Billion weeds around here that grow through asphalt.
So with concrete to the same standard as public sidewalks would be,
Yeah, obviously we don't. Might have to get staffed away on this. I mean, I don't know what our ability is to inspect them since we won't be accepting them if they're not in the public right of way, but I don't think it hurts to say they should be to the same standard as what the city is willing to accept for our maintenance responsibility.
And I would point out that if you wanted regular sidewalks for the sidewalk area and you wanted some distinction, you can always stamp the concrete or change the color or something to make the trails distinctive, or the paths. So what's our language on that one?
I agree with all of that. Especially given the size of the areas. Talk about open spaces next, Mr. Hanson, if everybody's ready to move on.
Sure. Somewhat reluctantly, but sure. I guess I've sort of since Tuesday been thinking more about this, but we'll bring it up for discussion. We're talking about open spaces and the minimum is 15%. We've talked about 20%. But the big hurdle to me is not open space, it's usable open space. Some ways we're talking about a little park, a little pavilion, a fire pit, just some maintained open spaces, I assume is what these are, is what the rest of these are supposed to be. Personally, I'm not so sure about a stormwater pond being usable open space. But I think it's worth at least having a discussion at this forum about just what if the goal of allowing for smaller lots is the need for usable open space, what do we consider usable open space? You know, I guess might be worth, just again, it's worth discussing.
And are we using that term properly, Mr. Heartless, the usable open space versus?
Yeah, I mean, you could have open space that's so steep that you can't use it for anything. The public street, the sidewalk is not open space, but the HOA owned paths would be considered open space because it's in the open space areas. Um, we don't want to include the stormwater management facilities in the open space.
Calculation, you mean?
In the open space
And
calculation.
let me be clear,
yes.
they would need to be in the open spaces because they're maintained by the HOA, but
Yes.
I guess I'm looking more from the 15% minimum
Right.
usable open space.
Yeah,
So it's a
they-
little bit of a,
They will be owned and maintained by the HOA, so they'll be located in HOA owned open space, but we prefer that it not be part of the calculation for that 15% because it's not usable.
Pond itself.
Yeah, unless they're going to allow someone to bring a canoe or something in, it's not really usable for recreational purposes.
And while we're talking open space, so we sort of talk about it holistically, I think Mr. Campbell mentioned this at the tail end of March meeting, and we discussed a little bit at the public field trip, was having maybe an additional open space buffer along the Gloria Place Jeffrey area. So just so that we're kind of holistically looking at the open space. I'll throw that out there too. And personally, I tend to agree with staff that the ponds themselves don't constitute usable open space.
Also, yeah, I agree. It would have to be specially designed so that you could get that canoe into it or your kids could splash in it or whatever. And it would have to be safe. And then I have yet to see a retaining ponds that are like that. So I think it should be excluded too.
How do we feel about increasing the usable open space requirement at 20%?
If we're going to have 267 homes, I think a little more is a good idea.
Well, yeah, in 267 homes, I haven't seen the marketing plan, but ostensibly hoping to attract some young families. And you can't throw a ball in a retaining pond. Well, you can throw it once.
I guess there's a part of me now that's thinking if we're gonna, it's kind, I guess my gut would say sort of one or the other, whichever one's easier to enforce, whether we increase the total amount of open space and just count the stormwater ponds as part of it, or not count that and keep it at the 15. I think both feels a little almost excessive at that point in some ways. It would be, again, just my opinion, but just trying to find a balance, I guess, is what is where my head's going to.
Do open space minus percentage of, say, retention pond? If there's a certain percentage that.
I think that's
At the
Mr.
head of-
Hansen's
yeah.
point, is that increasing the total to 20 and then not counting the retention ponds would be excessive.
That's kind of where I'm going at. I think because then we're almost kind of, I don't know what I'm trying to say there. Sorry.
I think 15% and not include the, which I think is what you're saying, and not include the retention pond in it. It's 15%. Some of the difference between 15 and 20 will come up with a retention pond.
I mean, because looking at the areas, I mean, those ponds are probably more than 5% of the, is that fair?
Goals end up
Yeah, yeah.
with more.
Okay, I feel comfortable with that. What about the an additional buffer, along because the Gloria Place, Jeffrey Street is where, there's not any sort of additional buffer up against an existing developed lots.
In other words, the yard for houses in this development backs right up onto the yards of houses on Gloria Place and Jeffrey Street.
Yeah, and where they do like up against Shenandoah Heights, there are they're either undeveloped lots that they're butting up against, or there are buffers
Mhm.
already planned. So that's, I think, why in particular that jumped out at us last month.
So you don't think there's any reason why we should go beyond the Gloria Place or Jeffrey Street, or would you?
Right. I mean, I think that, looking at it,
Mhm.
so this isn't developed and these have buffers there, these aren't developed.
Yeah, but if they ever are developed,
Well, I mean, yeah, so she could sort of plan those,
and they're shaped
these
such
houses
that-
are already there, whereas,
Okay, and they're on what looks like smaller lots, plus a lot of these are long enough.
I was gonna say these are very
Yeah,
long
okay.
lots that abut against the ones that don't have the buffer in place.
So
Just a
we're,
thought.
okay, so we're
So I would
looking-
be in favor of some additional buffer along that area.
Gloria Place and Jeffrey Street.
Mhm.
Okay.
Can I offer an amendment to additional condition number 19 to be considered? So after visiting yesterday and getting a better idea of what that common property line is, and I provided you all with some photos of that. So right now, additional condition number 19 reads basically 30 feet width of open space to be maintained by the homeowners association, plus a minimum setback of 30 feet from the principal structure, which would fall back to the R2. And looking at it now with how the overhead power line is positioned there, it's probably 20 to 25 feet off on that common property line that's encumbered by that that overhead easement. So that's going to limit the ability to really for the HOA to do anything there in terms of potential screening. So I almost think it'd be better. So we're talking about 60 feet here. I almost think it'd be better to go back to the 15-foot proposed rear yard there and 45-foot of open space.
Okay.
So keep the same distance, but go back to the original rear yard and provide more of a buffer that could be provide more room outside of the easement that could be utilized for screening in the future.
So the 30-foot, and I think that's fair. The 30-foot was to go around the additional setback was to go around
The entire
the
property.
entire property. So we'd have to be careful how we worded that if we were gonna treat that area differently.
And I've always said that those are the lots most impacted, obviously, because there's rear yards to rear yards. Everything else is a side yard with how it's currently laid out.
Yeah.
And we already have, well, that's a corner lot. I guess that may not apply to the rear yards on a property line, but I feel like that's the most impactful because there's a bigger difference between a rear yard impact and a side yard impact.
What's everybody else think?
Essentially, we're, in addition to Gloria Place and Jeffrey Street, what we're talking about is the lots that are over towards Mineola Street, that area, correct? In terms of the additional buffer?
Yeah, because I guess, and also,
Those three really long pieces also.
Development.
Excuse me, there is a development.
I'm sorry, you can't.
That is not in the map.
Okay, just in general, we can't have speaking out from the audience, please.
You're saying that there's nothing there. There's a cul-de-sac being built there right now that does not show up on the development map.
Ma'am, thank you. But please don't speak out like that.
This is public. This is our property you're talking about. We are allowed to voice our opinions.
Ma'am, this is not a public hearing. The public hearings are at the last two meetings, and we're now discussing.
Affecting the whole development. Nothing people on Gloria Place and Jeffrey Street. Once 30 houses are built there, you're gonna start using Ritchie Boulevard as a seat. You're already using Fisher Circle to get from the Chase Apartments out to Ritchie Boulevard. I
All right.
have 5 cars at least every day, and that is not even developed yet.
Ma'am, please, we pride ourselves on having decorum at these meetings, and I would beg of you to stop.
Over everybody who lives in Green Spring Valley and on Middlebrook Ave and in properties.
All right, so as to logistics of what Councilman Campbell had proposed, do we want to look at the Gloria Place, Jeffrey area and do because of the power line that's running through there differently than the different setback along the rest of the periphery?
You mean for the whole rest?
Because that's what so going back to what the original proposal had been, it was for a minimum setback of 30 feet for any principal structure around the periphery of the entire planned residential development.
No, I think it's definitely, we need extra where those homes would back up against those that are already on Gloria Place and Jeffrey Street, but I don't know that the rest of the area needs.
And I don't think, so 17 specifically calls out just the 30 feet property line from Gloria Place and Jeffrey Street. I don't necessarily think 19, if we add 30 feet to all of it, is a bad thing. Typically in most what would be called clustered or higher density, there
There's
is a little
something
bit of
around
a
the edge.
buffer. Again, I think obviously Gloria is the most impacted of all the existing
Right.
homes out there.
Until you were saying it should be 45 feet.
Well, just getting a better idea of, I mean, if we put a 30-foot buffer out there, essentially 25 of it is encumbered by easement and there's,
It's the easement, yeah.
Yeah.
And so if you wanted to put 45 in and make the backyard go back to the 15 feet.
I just think that would be
Some more.
better from
Okay.
from trying to,
Give
the
the
intent,
HOA
the
some
intent
time
of
to
the,
make
the
it
intent of the
usable.
condition to,
Mhm. Yeah, I see what you
Okay.
mean. I'm just concerning that we get the language correct. So when we read this as part of a motion, should we do that? We get the language.
sorry.
I'm struggling.
And I think the way that we looked at this, owned and maintained by the homeowners association, they wouldn't be able to maintain the first 25 feet
That's
of that 45.
Because that's the easement.
Because that's the easement. We could say not encumbered by the.
Well, there would already be- There would already be a easement, obviously,
Right.
language in place. I'm sure it would, I don't know if it had to be renegotiated or transferred just to the HOA, but they would have limited ability on what they
I
could.
guess I just didn't want to, so the way that the proposal had come from staff was this buffer area would be owned and maintained by the homeowners association, but I don't want to put on them a requirement to maintain the easement, or maybe you don't think that matters.
I don't think.
Yeah, I
maintained
mean,
by
that,
the
yeah, those are details that get worked
utility.
out at
Okay,
covenants and. Yeah.
okay.
So we'll be coming, we're looking at this one and Jessica is rewriting it for us here.
So I guess we would take 17 out altogether.
17 is out.
And then they would get renumbered. And then a strip of open space at least 45 feet in width owned and maintained must be provided between this development and any existing lot fronting on Gloria Place or Jeffrey Street. And then I think you would say, other than this area, there, so right here, so where it started, in addition to the open space, you would take that out
Okay.
and replace it with, other than this area adjacent Gloria Place and Jeffrey Street, there shall be a minimum setback of 30.
In other areas, there shall be a minimum setback of 30 feet.
How about that second sentence reads, in all other areas, there should be a minimum setback of 30 feet for any principal structure constructed on any lot that is located around the periphery of the, take out the word entire, planned residential development.
Yeah, periphery. So let's see what we got
See if
here.
that,
A strip of open space at least 45 feet, okay.
because then the other 15 will come from the 15
Yeah.
foot
Owned and
setback.
maintained by the home, existing lot fronting on Jeffrey Street. In all other
Areas.
there shall be a minimum of setback of 30 feet for any principal structure constructed on any lot.
That is
That is located around the periphery.
Fair enough.
of the planned residential development.
Got it.
You want to
Okay.
read that and see if everyone,
Okay, so what will be number 18, which was previously 19, will be a strip of open space at least 45 feet in width, owned and maintained by the homeowners association, must be provided between this development and any existing lot fronting on Gloria Place or Jeffrey Street. In all other areas, there shall be a minimum setback of 30 feet for any principal structure constructed on any lot that is located around the periphery of the entire planned residential development.
I would take out the word entire.
Okay, take out entire. Otherwise,
Thoughts?
Thanks.
As staff, can I ask a question on that? Since
Yes,
I'll be the one
please.
that's in.
The one enforcing it.
Because when you say 45 feet, you're including that with the rear setback.
No,
no.
Okay. Because I thought it was 30 and then you were counting on 15 with the rear setback.
The 15 is,
we're changing that to 45. So,
But then there's gonna be another 15 foot, that's the required rear setback.
yes.
Right.
Okay.
So that
Just want to make
gets,
sure that
that gets us to the 60 the same way we were planning
okay.
before that, but takes into consideration Mr. Campbell's thoughts on the power line running through that area.
I was just double checking.
That's okay.
um,
And if we need to tighten this up, it's
Yeah.
before council. All right.
so let's see, there was something.
So I
let's see
think
if we-
that, and so everybody is fine with not increasing, so looking at 20, which is now 19, we would take out that second sentence, increasing it to 20. Was everyone?
The stormwater management facility shall not be counted.
Yes.
Sorry, no, wait a minute. Let's go back to the beginning of that one and read.
Yeah,
what
that
the-
first sentence, so SCC blah, 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 requires a minimum of 15% of the land be set aside for permanent usable open space and recreation. Delete the next sentence.
Goes out.
The stormwater management facilities shall not be counted as part of the usable open space when calculating this percentage.
I can take out the rest of that paragraph because it's just for us.
All right,
Okay.
now that we have working language, discussion,
That's
comments.
20 and 21. Okay.
The thing I wanted to mention.
Okay, Daniel's got something.
Are we all good before we move on to the next?
Yes.
Can we put parentheticals on usable? Just to describe.
I think that's defined, like that's language right out of the code, right? Usable, open space and recreation.
It's not defined in the code. It's an interpretation of the zoning administrator that says usable must be usable. It's a interpretation we've used
So do
for
we
the last
need?
20 years.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. Do we need, I'm going back to one of these other ones that talks about, should we have the as determined by the zoning administrator language in there?
I don't think it would hurt to have that in there.
So for number 19, the new 19, where are we in?
I think at the very end of that second sentence.
As part of the usable open space when calculating this percentage, something about
As determined by the zoning administrator, because that's the language in the other conditions. We did settle on 5,000, so that's
Yes,
good.
so that's correct.
All right, and your last,
I didn't say last.
oh, well, the last that carries over from our discussions at the field trip. About updating the plan.
Oh, we'll come back to that.
Okay.
The others, I'm actually going to come back to numbers 9 and 10.
Okay,
Had some thoughts on that. Number 9 is about the 12% street grades.
mhm,
Unless it's implied well enough. I would support adding another statement there that says, so just again, to bring everybody up to speed that's not reading this, the subdivision ordinance limits the grades of streets in residential zones to no more than 12%. No street may exceed a 12% grade unless city council chooses to grant a variance to the subdivision standard. I'd be in favor of adding approval of this planned residential development in no way implies approval of this variance. Basically, it's still got to go through all the same motions. And again, if it's implied well enough,
I don't think.
I might be
ours does.
overthinking that one is what I'm
No
suggesting.
way Implies approval of.
And then on number 10, and I might lean a little bit into staff on this concept as well, depending on timing. 10 is talking about the 527 traffic impact analysis, including a turn lane analysis. Right now it says will be required as part of the construction plan review. Would it be more appropriate to do it at the preliminary plat review? Just because that's kind of bringing it more towards the front. And again, that's maybe Tim or even Rodney might want to speak to that.
I anticipated that we would be reviewing both of them at the same time. So you
Okay.
could put an or preliminary plat in there if you wanted to. But I assume that the developer would want us to go ahead and review both at once. And from our standpoint, it's better if we review them both at once because then we're looking at the preliminary plat and the construction plan and we can compare the two.
Gotcha. And I guess I'm just sort of thinking about it, that the construction plan could be for a portion of the development versus the preliminary plat really needs to be all of the development.
Yeah, that's true.
Generally speaking.
That's true as well. So I think it's good to have that preliminary plat term in there.
So
that's
as part of the preliminary plat review, take out construction plan.
Yeah.
okay. I got that.
Any comments on any of that, gentlemen? We don't want to steamroll you with Mr. Hanson's technical knowledge.
I'm sorry.
No, we
No,
appreciate
we
it.
appreciate it. Yeah.
And then the last one that you were alluding to before, I would like to, and we've got it written here, it's stating prior to this item being placed on the city council agenda, the master plan shall be updated to reflect these conditions. That way the city council gets a full and complete view of what we've talked about.
I 1000% agree with that.
And give them a good picture.
All right, I gave Mr. Hanson, just because he's the one that sort of led our discussion on Tuesday. Is there any other sort of technical stuff that anybody wants to discuss about the language of these conditions before we sort of talk about more overarching comments?
All right.
I'll entertain.
Okay, here we go. I will have these written down, so I'll give them to the clerk on the way out. These conditions. On the basis that it would serve the interests of public necessity, convenience, general welfare, and good zoning practice, I move the Planning Commission recommend approval of a special use permit for the McIntosh Village Planned Residential Development with the following conditions. 1, prior to the recordation of a final plat for Section 1 of the proposed development, city staff must review a copy of the proposed covenants and restrictions. A responsible party must be identified for the maintenance, repair, replacement of the stormwater management facilities, common areas, and amenities, as well as the proposed private street. 2, construction of the connection to Middlebrook Avenue must be completed as part of the first phase of the development and must be completed prior to issuance of any certificates of occupancy. 3, to avoid excessive construction traffic in Green Spring Valley, the road connecting to Ritchie Boulevard shall not be open to traffic until the certificate of occupancy is ready to be issued for the 31st dwelling unit. 4, an infrastructure construction plan must be submitted and reviewed to ensure that infrastructure construction meets city standards. The necessary streets, water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure must be designed and constructed accordingly to extend to this development. The infrastructure construction plan must be approved prior to beginning any construction activities. 5, the development will include more than 50 new lots, therefore a preliminary plat will be required prior to submittal of the infrastructure construction plan. 6, all lots to be platted will be for single-family development or uses that support single-family development as determined by the zoning administrator. 7, one private street is approved which will provide access to lots 7, 8, and 9 on the master plan. All other lots will be accessed from a dedicated public street. 8, all walking trails and paths for all amenities must be constructed with concrete surface to the same standard as public sidewalks and approved by the zoning administrator. 9, Section 17.15.070 of the subdivision ordinance limits the grade of streets in residential zones to no more than 12%. No street may exceed a 12% grade unless City Council chooses to grant a variance to the subdivision standard. Approval of this planned residential development in no way implies approval of such a variance. 10, because of the development's proximity to a Virginia Department of Transportation maintained roadway, Route 262 and Route 252 beyond the city limits, a 527 traffic impact analysis, including turn lane analysis, will be required as part of the preliminary plat review. 11, in addition to the Staunton City Code, Title 17 requirement for sidewalks will also be required along the frontage of all residential lots as shown on the master plan. 12, the total number of units may not exceed 267 single-family dwellings. 13, on a corner lot, in cases where a garage faces a corner side yard, the corner side setback shall be a minimum of 18 feet. 14, approval of the special use permit for a planned residential development will include staff review and approval of the restrictive covenants for the sole purpose of ensuring the association or other entity is responsible for ownership and maintenance of the common elements of the development, such as common areas, open space, recreational area, common amenities, and stormwater management facilities. Other provisions of the restrictive covenants are a private agreement between the association, individual property owners, and/or the developer, and the city of Staunton is not a party to, nor does it take any interest in those provisions, nor will the city of Staunton enforce or litigate any matter related to the restrictive covenants. 15, approval of the special use permit for the planned residential development shall only include approval of entrance options number 1 and number 2 as shown on the master plan. Option number 3, undeveloped Grayson Street, is not approved at this time. If the developer wishes to use undeveloped Grayson Street for access, they must return at a later date and amend the special use permit and provide engineering details to show that Grayson Street can be developed with an acceptable grade. 16, a street connection must be made between Street H, shown on the master plan, and Gordon Street. 17, the city shall not approve any construction entrance from the Green Spring Valley or Shenandoah Heights neighborhoods. 18, a strip of open space, at least 45 feet in width, owned and maintained by the homeowners association, must be provided between this development and any existing lot fronting on Gloria Place or Jeffrey Street. In all other areas, there shall be a minimum setback of 30 feet for any principal structure constructed on any lot that is located around the periphery of the planned residential development. 19, Staunton City Code Section 18.105.0202C requires a minimum of 15% of the land be set aside for permanent usable open space and recreation. The stormwater management facilities shall not be counted as a part of the usable open space when calculating this percentage as determined by the zoning administrator. 20, the minimum required lot size shall be 5,000 square feet. 21, prior to this item being placed on the city council agenda, the master plan shall be updated to reflect these conditions.
Do I have a second?
Seconded.
It has been moved and seconded. The planning commission recommend approval of the special use permit with the stated conditions. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Robinson,
Aye.
Mr. Kyer, Mr. Tomaso,
Aye.
Mr. Hanson,
Aye.
Ms. Wiggin,
Aye.
motion carries.
All right. The
Even have zoning laws in this city, if you are going to violate them.
How dare you?
this matter will
No,
go
you are
before
violating
city
your own
council
zoning laws. And I don't care if I am out of order. We
at their
have
main
already sent
meeting
you a
or
reason
as soon
to
thereafter
show
as the developer can provide us with an updated plan. And there will be another public hearing. It will be advertised. Adjoining property owners will get notice. And everyone will be able to speak to city council and share their viewpoints, including the applicant and members of the public.
But you said we were going to be able to speak tonight at this podium. 3 minutes apiece.
That
We
was-
haven't gotten it yet.
Sir, that was for public matters that had a
Nobody
public
will
hearing
that's
listen
what
tonight.
you
that,
said at the
except
beginning of the
a
meeting
couple
for us.
people on Gloria Place. This affects everybody in the development, not just the people on Gloria Place. We have one entrance in and one entrance out, and this is going to affect all of us. And you need to send notification to everybody in Green Spring Valley, everybody in Shenandoah, and everybody on Middlebrook, not just a half dozen people whose properties abut this high-density development in a low-density zoned area.
And you hadn't looking forward to what happens when VDOT starts to cut.
All right, we're going to
stars
move
program
on to
Springville
item
Avenue.
5,
Which
other
will cut
business. Mr.
left
Hartless,
turn.
is there any other business?
Traffic
No,
is
ma'am,
terrible.
there's no other business.
Shame to-
Any updates on actions of city council? They can't wait until next meeting?
No, ma'am, no updates.
All right.
Do you think all these people came here to talk? Appreciate you shutting us up.
Folks, there was no public hearing advertised. We can't have a public hearing if it's not advertised.
On the web, I
No,
saw.
there was not.
It
We
was
are
too.
having, there's an opportunity for matters from the public when anyone can speak, including on this topic. There was not an advertisement for a public hearing. There's already been 2 on this land use matter.
We didn't
Yeah,
get
you
to
just said
speak,
You'll get
There will be another one when it goes to city council,
but the website said we could speak this time.
and you can at matters from the public.
It's a violation of the zoning law.
No, it
already,
is
and
not.
we're allowing it.
All right.
You're allowing it. It's not a high-density development.
We turn
It's a
to
low-density
matters from the
zoned
public.
area.
Are there any matters that anyone would like to discuss from the public?
Usually not. Not already on the agenda.
You didn't come here to get steamrolled, okay?
Again, ma'am, this was not a public hearing tonight. There will be a full public hearing before council.
You're gonna be going to city council. You're violating your own zoning laws in this city.
If you could, please just state your name and address for us
Mike
before.
Onsbach, 663 Glory Place. There's a public problem here. Y'all might as well throw your zoning book out and your fire code out. When I left this meeting in March, the house beside me caught fire. And I was glad for God that my house was far enough away from that other house where it didn't spread to my house. This property you're talking about was originally supposed to be part of Green Springs Valley. But when it came time to develop it, it was turned down because the city could not provide water at a sufficient pressure to fight a fire should it happen up there. Mr. Hartless said that the side lots was supposed to be 7 foot. That's for a single-story dwelling. These are 2-story dwellings, which the side lots are supposed to be 10 feet. So you're putting these things almost half as distance apart as what they're supposed to be. And the way the wind blows up there, and if there's not adequate pressure, if one of those houses burn, it's going to set the whole development on fire. You might as well change the name from McIntosh Village to Staunton Palisades, because when it catches fire, it's all going to burn, and you're not going to have pressure up there to put the fire out. I spoke to the lead fireman that was out there the night the house beside me was burning. He said he's seen these plans as it stands, and he has some serious concerns with them. So before you go pushing this thing through and jamming it down everybody's throat, you need to talk to your fire marshal. You need to review these zoning laws, because if you pass it for this guy, everybody that comes in here is going to look at what you've done for this developer, and they're going to want you to bend the rules again. You're bending too many rules. And you see all these people here? These are the people that this affects. It doesn't affect any of y'all sitting up here. It affects us. It affects our families. It affects our lives. It affects our home values. And we don't approve of it. We say no. And if you care, you will look around at all these people and realize that we have problems with this. This problem is the special use permit. If they're going to develop it, make them develop it according to the zoning and fire regulations. Because if you don't, everybody that comes up with another idea like this is going to come up and say, well, y'all did it from McIntosh Village. Why aren't you going to do it for me? These people are concerned, and they deserve a right to speak. And if this thing passes through, we will tie this up in litigation for years. Thank you for listening.
My name is John Hart and I live at 588 Hilltop Drive. I want to repeat something that he just said. We're talking about water pressure. In that area, if you don't require the developer to put in a water storage tank, they will not have enough. And I speak from my background as superintendent of water and wastewater treatment for the city of Staunton for 13 years. And I kind of know about this stuff. The second thing is you haven't considered the possibility of VDOT STARS program, which is soon on the horizon, where they upgrade Greenville Avenue. And when you come out Ritchie Boulevard, you will not be able to make a left turn. That means you'll have to go down Charles Street. Charles Street is too small for the number 500 more cars that are going to come through Green Spring Valley because they're not going to want to go to Middlebrook Avenue. They're going to go the other way because that's where everything is. Another thing is it's tearing up a wildlife habitat. We've had enough of that. So, we ought to start saving that. I have another question about your paths. Don't concrete paths violate the city's low impact stormwater regulations? You're violating one regulation to allow somebody to have something else. I don't care if it's easier or not for the homeowners association. Let them take care of whatever, gravel. But you don't want to violate the low impact stormwater cotton picking regulations. And the other thing is, I know they'll bring construction vehicles through Green Spring Valley. I had to call the city inspector on ENS 3 times because of mud coming down Fisher Circle. And that was for 18 houses. You're talking about 267. So you haven't looked at all the facts. You haven't looked at all the situation. And there's only 2 ways in and out of that project. We only got 1 way in Green Spring Valley, and you're going to load us up with all those extra cars coming through. A traffic problem. And I think that's what these people are worried about. Let some of them talk to you. My name is Benny Brown. I live at 700 Coran Street on the corner of Ritchie Boulevard. My wife and I moved in there 50 years ago. I know my neighbors and I know my neighborhood. And let me tell you, you have opened up Moore Street. Okay. Well, wanna guess what's roaring up and down Ritchie Boulevard right now? Damned old tandem axle dump trucks. And I mean, they're rolling. They come off of Moore Street to David Street. They turn right and then they turn left onto Ritchie Boulevard so they don't have to go through the school zone there for Bessie Weller. And let me tell you, those trucks are rolling. If you think they're going 25 miles an hour, they're not. You got people walking, you've got children, you got people out there pushing carriages. You have no comprehension. Well, you don't give a damn. And it's been very obvious to all of these people. You're so hungry to pass this. These sorry ass people here called Staunton, Augusta, whatever they are, developers, they knew what they bought. They bought zoned R2. Then damn it, leave it R2 and let them suffer the consequences if they don't have any more intelligence. Unless somebody in the city, and it won't be the first time, go ahead and buy that. We can probably slide through a little variance. Okay, we can take care of you. By God, it's happened before, and I'll tell you, I don't trust a damn one of you sitting up there, not a one. And I hope you don't sleep at night. And that's my personal opinion.
My name is Nancy Calanta. I live at 617 Christie Place, and I do not apologize for interrupting because your maps, if it's anything like the map that is shown, don't take into account the development already there being built on Fisher Circle. We already have traffic coming through on Fisher Circle. And if you think that people are going to go around Grayson Street to Middlebrook to Greenville Avenue to go to the Kroger shopping mall, they're not going to do it. They're going to come right up Ritchie Boulevard or they're going to come up right Fisher Circle. And we're dealing with that traffic now. With the Meadowbrook Trace, they're already coming up through our properties. What's going to happen when you add 536 more cars to this road? Now, I represent a bunch of people here, and we sent out a presentation and a letter to every member of the city council and the zoning board and this council. Did you even take into consideration the research that we did?
Mhm.
The sinkholes, the karst maps, the water problems, the issues that we have with drainage already because of the overdevelopment that's going on in Green Spring Valley. Did you even take any of that into consideration? Did you take into consideration that these people, some of them have lived here 40 or 50 years, and you want to rip up their backyards? And and I believe somebody already sent this to you, those power lines go right down the middle of the street of this proposed development. They're not set back. They go right down the middle. So I'm just looking at your faces. You don't give a damn, do you? You don't live there. We live there. And we are going to have to deal with another 5 years of construction as they build 30 houses at a time. Do you think that is fair to us? We already dealt with Meadowbrook Trace when they were blowing up the mountain, the rocks out of Meadowbrook Trace. We got cracks in our foundation. The people on, yeah, you had people on Moore Street who had chunks of rock and dirt fall in their front yards because they didn't use blasting mats. We actually had to call the city to get them to use blasting mats to reduce the impact on our properties. We cannot deal with another 5 years of construction. The cul-de-sac on Fisher Circle that is going to connect up on Moore Street, we got at least another 1.5 or 2 years of construction there. And now you're telling us that we're going to have to deal with the construction of 267 more homes in an area developed R2? Why are you approving a high density development in a low density area?
Your 3 minutes are up, please.
I'm speaking for a bunch of people here. They gave me
You
their
can
3
speak.
minutes and I'm using my 3 minutes and their 3 minutes because they asked me to speak for them. And don't look at me like that. The contempt on your face right now is really disturbing.
There's no contempt, ma'am.
Yes, there
We're
is.
just listening. That's what we're supposed to do during this, and we do.
Thank you. Well, you've all seen the letter, so I'm not going to repeat it word for word, but this amenities that they're talking about, the walking paths and the gazebos and the fire pits, we're not going to get any benefit from that. That is for HOA members only.
That's right.
So you're going to rip up our properties, subject us to 5 more years of construction, only to have us not be able to use any of these amenities? And let me tell you something about HOAs. They don't allow any changes. You cannot put up a flagpole. You cannot let your lawn get 3 inches high. You cannot do anything that an HOA does not approve of. But yet you're going to let this HOA violate the city's zoning laws. Think about that for a minute. What if you lived in Green Spring Valley? Would you want to deal with another 5 years of construction? We have construction trucks going up Fisher Circle. And now they're going to be using Ritchie Boulevard after the 30th house is built. This is an abomination. And if we have to, we will tie this up in litigation. This builder must be held to the zoning standards that were set by the city. No variance, no special use permit. Because that is only going to open the door for other people who want to put in high density developments in a low density zoned area. And yes, I am angry because I feel like you have ignored our research and our concerns, and you're just going to kick this over to the city council without even giving a modicum of thought of what it is doing to our lives already. Thank you.
Thank you.
Zeke Standard, 905 Ritchie Boulevard. Throughout the meeting tonight, you've been referring to the master plan that was submitted, and I spent quite a while tonight on my phone trying to find a copy of that. Is that something that's available to the public, either for the current one or the new one that will have to be submitted?
Yes, sir. It was part of the agenda packet. So if you go to, maybe, will you explain where it is on the website? You'll do a much better job than I will.
If you go to the city website, to the planning and zoning page, you'll see a link there for planning commission. agendas, and you can open the agenda and you can see the full packet, and the entire master plan is part of that packet.
There's a little drop down before each meeting and you want to click on the whole packet, just not the agenda. And it usually goes up the Friday before when the packets go out. So
Friday before the meeting.
it's the Friday before the meeting.
Thank you.
But, and so you can see that now. They don't go away after the meeting.
All of the previous agenda packets are there as well.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak, please? If you come to the podium, please, so we can get you on record.
My name's Tim Coley. I live at 801 Ritchie Boulevard. I may have missed this from the previous meetings. I didn't know about this development until just a couple weeks ago. But has there already been a traffic impact study done on Ritchie Boulevard?
So I think, Mr. Hartless, it might be helpful to sort of go through if in fact council would approve the special use permit, sort of what, I know it was in the packet, but just the standards and the process of construction afterwards and all of the other check marks that would have to be gone through by the developer. I think that would be helpful to everyone.
And including where the 527 study fits and.
Sure. So if city council approves the special use permit, and just, I don't think we mentioned it earlier, but this public hearing for city council will be on May the 14th at 7 PM in this room.
And I guess given if they can get the plan updated by then.
Yes, assuming they can get the plan.
That would be the
updated by then.
earliest it would be.
The next step after a special use permit approval would be for the developer to submit a preliminary plat. And the condition of the special use permit states that the preliminary plat will be the time in which the developer also has to provide that 527 traffic impact analysis, which will be reviewed as part of the preliminary plat review by our transportation planner. We also will share a copy of that with the Virginia Department of Transportation for their review. And it will be part of the review process and must be found acceptable before the preliminary plat could be approved.
All right. Could I say, yes, sir?
I was going to say that the next step would be an infrastructure construction plan, which is also known to some people as a site plan for the development of each phase of the development. So phase one, if that were 20 houses or 30 houses, however they wanted, the developer gets to choose the pace. So however many houses they propose in phase one, they will submit this construction plan, and that plan will show us how they propose to build the streets, the sidewalks, the curb, the gutter, the grading plan for the lots, the stormwater management plan for the lots. It'll all be included on that construction plan.
And that goes through all of the various departments of staff, including the fire department and the planning department and the engineering department and 5 others that I'm.
Could I ask this? Would there be the possibility that the traffic impact study would negate this addition being built, this subdivision being constructed?
It would be possible because the 527 traffic analysis could possibly show that there are improvements needed to the public street that are more expensive than the developer is willing to pay.
Okay, because Ritchie Boulevard it's amazing how many people walk during the day with their families and their pets, and there are no sidewalks on Ritchie Boulevard. And so those are just areas why we're, concerned about heavy increase of traffic, just the danger that's involved in that. Yeah. So thank you very much. Sure.
Thank you. Next, please.
Thank you. My name is Carlos Canales and I live at 697 Alextian Drive. The reason why I moved to this area, especially where I live also, in Alextian Drive, is because the quality of life that the community has. And I think with this project, I just find out what was happening. So this is new to me. So I don't know what studies you have done, especially with the environment, You know, here in the city, we are not an agricultural community, but around us, we are. And one of the problems that I found is water. You know, that's, we have to go in through restriction of water in the future. So the more houses that we are putting in the area, so how that is the impact to the quality also, you know, in the quantity that we are going to provide. And also the traffic, because it's true, Ritchie Avenue is becoming almost like Daytona 500 sometimes, depend what day of the, you know, what time of the day you are walking, because I like to walk through in the neighborhood, and that's one of the problems that I found it too, is the amount of traffic. And the trucks, yes, indeed, somebody just mentioned about the trucks also, the few that they cross, they are not going 25 miles per hour, I can assure you that. And if you are lucky to see them, so yes, you can stay away. If it's not so, you can imagine what can happen. And yes, indeed, the neighborhood is, you know, family oriented in the sense that there are children's families walking around. And they are, and as you know, that yes, the road is wide, but there are no sidewalks.
Right.
You know, so that is what I think the concern. And also, we consider also the environment impact that this is going to have. You know, because I mean, cutting all the trees that we are getting right now, that also will affect with the quality of water too. Because, you know, the more trees we have, the more green areas we have, the more possibility for this water to really filter through the ground and help with everything. But the more concrete that we put on it, where all this water is going? To the sewage. And then what are we going to have? More floods? Like what happens? We have another storm, and then what are we going to have? More flat. So that is my concern. And I don't know if there is an area where I can check all maybe the studies that you guys has done it about the environment and all that. It will be interesting to read it.
So this doesn't require like an environmental impact study. And we've
It
talked
should
about
be.
this at prior meetings. The developer actually, the owner could actually clear cut the property if they wanted to. There's no restrictions on that. So we can only do what we can within the confines of what the city is legally allowed to do. I will tell you that we, as part of our field trip, drove down Ritchie Boulevard and are aware of how wide it is, and you know, past some other vehicles, and because that is not part of the development, we can't require the developer to do anything, but it definitely is on the radar of this commission and city council to, you know, perhaps address those in some other ways. But it can't be, you can't require the developer to do that because it's not part of their land as part of this project, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you.
But yes, we are very aware of that.
And one
Yes,
more
sir.
other thing that I wanted to say is, you know, with these corporations or developments that they come from areas that I move on, they just come and develop these areas. And then they connect these roads to the main roads that the taxpayer has been contributed to that. But then we are ending with the problems later on, and our taxes are going to contribute to also to, you know, to solve that impact that all these cars are going to create in our roads. And that is the other thing that I don't understand, because they come here, they build the houses, they collect the money, they live, and then they leave the problem to us. And then we have to figure out where this money has to come up from. So that is all my concern also. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, council. The rest of my neighbors have already addressed the concern of traffic.
Could I real quick just get you to state your name? And
Oh, sorry,
address? That's
sorry.
okay. That's okay.
Michael Smith, 910 Ritchie Boulevard. I have 2 young children. My concern is the impact of the Bessie Weller School. I think Mr. Tomaso mentioned young families moving into the McIntosh Village. How would that affect population of the school? It's just my concern. So you may not have an answer now. I just wanted to address my concern. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Thank you for bringing up something everybody else.
Elizabeth Elliott, 905 Ritchie Boulevard. I have a couple of questions regarding the traffic analysis. One, it is already almost impossible to get out of Ritchie Boulevard. And especially turning left, and I can sit there for 10 to 15 minutes trying to get to work every day. Is that analysis going to analyze the impact of time for commute and then the possibility of a traffic light to help with that? It is quite dangerous turning out of there. So that's especially also with the Duncan being right there. There's a lot of stuff going on. So that's my first question.
So we cannot, as the city, require the developer to do an impact study there because again, it doesn't touch the development. So that's why that analysis is related to Middlebrook Avenue, which is where the new access will be, and the property touches Middlebrook Avenue. But again, that is something that is certainly on the city's radar. It's something that was addressed. Maybe Mr. Campbell can help me back. It was that study in 2019.
Yeah, there is a study recommendation on the books for that
What
intersection.
was that?
You're not going to like it, but it's
It's the
to
left
take
turn.
the left out.
Left turn is what it is.
But the issue there is from a signal standpoint is there's not enough distance between that intersection and the signal at Statler. The city maintains its own streets. They could put in a signal if they wanted to pay for it, but you couldn't use state funding to do a signal because it wouldn't be approved at a state level.
My next question is for clarification. You said that the traffic analysis is only for Middlebrook, yet the road is going to be, neighborhood is going to be accessed through Ritchie. So I don't understand why that is not being accounted for.
Because, and Tim, maybe you can explain that a little bit better, of the requirements that we can legally put on the developer.
Yeah, so we're not permitted to require off-site improvements for transportation purposes. So because of that, we can't look at that intersection with Ritchie and Greenville Avenue. It's too far away. It's off-site, and the developer cannot be required to make any improvements at that intersection.
And that's not a city requirement. That's a state.
Yeah,
that's state
that
code.
comes from the Code of
State law,
Virginia.
yeah.
Great, thank you.
Is there anyone online with their hand raised? Is
No, ma'am.
there anyone else here tonight? Yes, please.
Okay. Just in listening to everybody and I sincerely want to say that, you know, we did get all of the emails, the reports, the slides, everything and looked at them, considered it. I will say just kind of going through a couple of the what I think are key points. The first and foremost is we're up here looking at this. The property is zoned R2 already. So this isn't a variance request like maybe we were working with earlier before rezoning. This is simply a tool in the toolbox that the city code allows us to look at maybe a better way to develop a piece of property that's actually less impactful. I know it doesn't sound that way right this second, but at an R2 by right zoning, the developer had the right to technically build 495 houses based on zoning densities and that kind of thing. And they could have done that without any restrictions or guardrails whatsoever. What we tried to do and looking at this, and we put 20, 21, so
22, yeah.
20-ish, I don't remember right at the top of my head, restrictions that say, no, this needs to be developed in a mindful way, in an impactful way, listening to what was being said, and then trying to balance a development that could be done without any guardrails to what the citizens of the nearby neighborhoods are saying to us. So please don't think that we're not listening at all. It's just trying to balance what we do and what we have to do. Somebody did mention, you know, the recent fire there, and you know, my heart goes out to those people. I'm grateful that the other houses weren't impacted. I will tell you, water is a concern, but it's not really for us to talk about water. But I will take a quick second to talk about it. The city engineer has already, I believe, already looked at this once for water availability. As things progress, the city engineer will look at it again. The fire marshal will look at it again. There are codes as far as
Pressures.
pressures as it relates to house location. And I'm probably not using the right word there, but basically, depending on how far houses are spread apart, you have to have certain pressures. The further they are apart, the less pressure that you need. So that's a thing that's going to come in time with preliminary plating, with site planning and that kind of thing, that the fire marshal is going to look at it and go, do we have the pressure to allow for this, for, in theory, houses that are 12 feet apart?
Like
That's what they're going to look at and say 6 foot setback, 6 foot setback makes 12. Just a quick note, because I did look this up before our meeting tonight, that means they're going to need 1,000 gallons per minute of pressure. If they don't have that, the fire marshal, in theory, can shut it down or say you have to have a wider.
Oh, that's a flow, not pressure.
I apologize. You're right. That's my misspeak, but I think the number's still right. Correct. Yeah. So yes, a fire flow of 1,000 gallons per minute. But again, that's a fire code thing. That's not really a planning commission thing. I'm just bringing that up because it was brought up. As far as the environmental impact, again, I think, again, right now the developer has the right to go clear cut this thing tomorrow. In this case, we're having some open spaces. There's 30 acres that aren't going to be disturbed according to this master plan. So in a way, that's actually, it's again, the perfect thing for the entire neighborhood to be this thing sits vacant forever. But it's an R2 zoning. That's the likelihood of that happening is minimal. So in this case, we are kind of saying, hey, we are have lessening of an impact because there's 30 acres that aren't getting developed. So again, just trying to, it's not that we're not listening, but we're also trying to balance doing nothing and doing something and trying to put some guardrails on that to better the impact to the community. And that's not saying there's not going to be any, but we try to do our best to mitigate some of that when we can. Appreciate the time. Thank you.
And I would like to make one tiny comment.
Sure.
Please. There was a concern expressed earlier about the fires, and the closer the buildings are together, the more difficult that is. You're absolutely right. And we know that. And I will point out one thing. I don't know the numbers because this isn't my field, but I do know from years of planning experience that if the buildings are closer together, the fire rating in the walls has to be higher. So that's meaning that it will take them longer to catch fire. And it gives an opportunity for the fire department to get there. And so it's not like we are ignoring putting houses closer together so that they're going to catch fire more easily. There is a balance there.
The
and it
6
can be
feet
worked
is
out.
actually above that requirement. It's 5 feet.
Yeah, anything less than 5 feet, the walls have to be fire rated. If it's 5 feet or more, then there's no rating required. And 5 foot setback equals 10 foot between houses.
Yes. Okay.
Anybody else? All right. Well, I thank all of you. We truly did. We listened. We read all the emails. We went back and reread all the emails. We talked about it on our field trips each time. And I encourage everybody to come back out. Like I said, if the developer can get the plan together in time for the May meeting, that will be on May 21st, Mr. Hart, 14th.
May 14th.
That's our meeting's the 21st, sorry, May 14th. If not, I would expect it to be at the June meeting, which would be June 24th. We don't have those little calendars anymore.
If you can bear with me for 1 second. The June meeting is June the 25th.
And again, state code requires all adjoining property owners to get notice. So they will get notice of the public hearing. But if anybody has any trouble finding where the planning commission and council agendas are, please call the office. They can guide you through where that is. And you can check that on a monthly basis to see what is on our agenda.
Tim, since that's a public hearing, it needs to be advertised. And I know that traditionally it gets advertised in the newspaper, but for those people that might not get the newspaper, where's the best place to find when that city council meeting is going to be through public advertisement?
Sure. So the city will put it on their Facebook page. That tends to be the way that most people see those public hearings now. So we'll put it on the Facebook page. It'll be advertised twice in the newspaper. Those are usually on Thursdays. And we'll post it here in the public notice bulletin board in the hallway here in City Hall. And then letters will be sent out to all property owners who are immediately adjacent to this development.
About sending an email. I get all kinds of emails from the city of Stanton about everything, but not the planning commission.
There's not like a notice hotline like Public Works that you can sign up for, right?
No, there's nothing like that for public hearings.
November meeting, people who live up Shenandoah Heights got their letter for the meeting.
So yes, our postal service is unfortunately not what it once was. So.
Problem in Richmond.
So again, I really encourage everyone, to find out where this is on the, avail yourself of where this is on the public website. If you have any issues, staff is more than happy to help you. And, if you don't have that, call them and they can work with you, I'm sure, to help with other places you can find those notices. Again, thank you to everyone. Thank you to my fellow commissioners for all of your expertise. Our next planning commission meeting will be May 21st, 2026. And if there's nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you.